When you finally get the time, then you'll be able to do your work. Right? Just imagine you were given a full week to work on your craft. A full, unadulterated week where that was all that you had to focus on. Or maybe a full month. Or dare I say, an entire year. Can you imagine? Let's be real. We can imagine because as artists, we often go to that specific place of fantasy. What is it that we think to ourselves? We think if I could just do my work for a week without interruption, or a month, or a year, that would fix everything. That's what I've been missing. Not having that kind of time is the problem. That's why I don't get my work done. I'm here to make the case that not only is this type of thinking a bit of a myth, but it's sabotaging you badly. It's so very tempting to think as artists that getting big blocks of open time to do our work is A, the ideal, and B, the only way that we can really get our work done. But I would argue there's more than what meets the eye. I'll start with the story. My great-grandfather was a coal miner. It was brutal work, especially on those blistering hot days. And story goes that the old-timers that had been doing the work for a long time had an interesting relationship with water. Keep in mind, they didn't have plumbing down in those mines. They certainly didn't have water bottles or water coolers, perhaps at most a canteen. But needless to say, there wasn't an endless supply of water throughout the workday. My great-grandfather explained that what the established miners knew that the younger miners didn't was that when coming out of that depth, 1,000 feet below the surface of the earth, and out of that severe heat at the end of the day, the key was to drink your water slowly, not too cold, and only little bits at a time. That's what eventually would get you hydrated again. Of course, what was the temptation here? Obviously, to drink down the water like crazy. Slamming that water would have been what everyone was fantasizing about. He explained that even if offered a warning, the new miners would often give in to the temptation. What did that result in? He shared that not only would they get violently ill, but reported that heartbreakingly, one miner died right there on the spot in front of him, just from how he drank that water. It was a shock to the system. Too much that was too starkly different, too fast. Why might I tell this story? As a therapist and an art maker, I've witnessed it countless times. Clients, artists, fantasizing about big blocks of time to do their work, putting all their hopes and expectations on those periods of time that will hopefully happen at some point. The temptation is totally understandable. It sounds amazing, right? Yet when the time actually comes, what ends up happening? Very little gets done. And in many cases, absolutely nothing at all. With all the best intentions to sit and write or start a new painting, produce a song, learn a monologue, build a website, a creative business plan, whatever it might be, naturally, we turn to the things that we are more practiced in and that give us a sense of gratification instantly. Binging on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Netflix, the news, group chats, online shopping, pornography, other addictions. The things that feel like they're offering some type of immediate reward. And then, of course, what sets in after that block of time comes to a close? It can be rough. Feelings of disappointment, of guilt, sometimes berating ourselves, self-loathing, feeling like a failure. This is when depression can set in. This is when panic and anxiety can set in. Just like my great-grandfather's story, the freedom is in essence a shock to the system. We don't know how to metabolize it. It's too different than what we were used to. And reason being, we haven't been fully practicing along the way what will actually make those times a success versus pure overwhelm. So what do we do about this? The great news, there's a lot we can do. Let's dig in. To Tool number 1, be realistic about the fantasy. Just like coming to grips with any fantasy, the first step is to get radically real. In this case, allow yourself to get really comfortable with the idea that big blocks of open time are not the surefire answer to your creative frustrations. In fact, without taking these periods of time on purposefully and with more focus, it can lead to more frustration. Where's frustration? In many ways, by being realistic about the fantasy, it's about beginning the mourning process. Allow yourself to feel saddened that the seeming solution that we tend to all put so much hope and expectation into as artists isn't really what we thought it would be. And with that, here's what's remarkable. When we have the bravery to get really real and mourn the fantasy, shockingly, that's what opens up the opportunity for what we're really craving, real progress, which leads to tool number 2. Tool number 2, using the time you do have now. Okay, so let's take the resistance that might be bubbling up in you right now head on. Let's get it all out. Tell me why you don't have enough time right now. We'll do it together. My day job, my night job, my other day job and night job on top of that. I have bills to pay, tons of them. I'm a student and I am drowning in assignments. I'm a parent and my time is not my own ever. I'm a caretaker. I have mind-boggling responsibilities. I have health challenges. My schedule is inconsistent. I am exhausted all the time. I don't have the mental bandwidth. Do any of these sound familiar? If so, let me validate. Oh yeah. This is the real stuff that we're contending with as people and as artists. What's even more of a challenge, it can make us feel like we're the only one and everyone else has it so much easier, which means that they can get their stuff done, but not me. I've devoted a whole episode to that specific feeling for you to watch after this one if it's ringing a bell. Though these things are valid, I'm still going to challenge you to find the time that you do have now for what I call creative burst sessions. Creative burst sessions, small periods of time in which you engage in your work more frequently and consistently throughout the week, rather than waiting and hoping for huge blocks of time. I'm talking about an afternoon or an hour, a half hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, whatever you can give. By building in enough of these with consistency, they are going to add up in a very real way over time. And not only that, they're going to get you practiced in actually working on your craft. Speaking of practice, where are the best places to look for those blocks of time first? Remember a few minutes ago when I was talking about the things that we tend to turn to because we are well practiced in giving them our time? Again, binging on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Netflix, the news, group chats, online shopping, pornography, other addictions. This is the tip of the iceberg. We could easily think of more. But when you start to feel frustrated thinking that you have no time, I would encourage you to aim that frustration at some of these well-practiced default choices that we commonly make with our free time. Man, when we are honest with ourselves, a lot of our time that we could be utilizing for our work, this concept of creative burst sessions, is getting vacuumed up by these forms of instant gratification. And if it's tempting to say that we turn to these things in excess because we need a break or we're tired, I would argue that the guilt that builds up in us while we're binging on these things isn't really offering us the relief that we're in real need of. In fact, it's making the exhaustion worse. Now, please hear me. If you are going to sit down and watch a movie or a show or YouTube, great. Do it with your full heart. Really let it be a conscious and purposeful act, an act of restoration. But that's different than falling into a well-worn groove of turning to our practiced instant gratification or addictions, because they've become the default choice for our time. When they're the default, they don't feel restorative. They actually start to make us feel really terrible. Other places to look for time for creative burst sessions. Be crafty with this, be clever, and put yourself first. Maybe it's your lunch period or work breaks, waking up 15 or 20 minutes early. Maybe it's on the train or the bus to and from work, while you're waiting in the car for the kids. Maybe it's while the baby's down for a nap. Maybe there's an afternoon that you come home early from work each week, or a day that you generally have off. Take a close look at your weekends. Maybe you work, but maybe you don't. Where can your creativity get a little bit of that valuable time real estate? I challenge you to get really hungry for these little blocks of time. Creative burst sessions, pack them in. I can attest firsthand that seemingly insignificant flashes of time can and do add up. With them, you start to make some serious traction very quickly, which brings us to tool number 3. Tool number 3, craft a plan. We're bringing it home here, and this is the really exciting part. Let's say the day comes where you actually do get that open week, or an open month, or a year, or beyond that. Beautiful. If indeed you've built into your life consistent time for your work, leading up to this, creative burst sessions. Guess what? If that happens, we won't be in fantasy realm anymore. Not only will you have made some serious progress with your craft up to this point, but you will have honed the skill set of using time well. Leverage those tools that you've mastered to make your open time a success. Set up structure for yourself. Break things into smaller time blocks. It's almost like putting creative burst sessions back to back to back, emphasizing time for breaks and restoration in between. Instead of seeing a massive 8-hour period looming in front of you with no direction, craft a plan so that you are able to actually enjoy true creative freedom within the structure that you've set up for yourself instead of crippling overwhelm. If you feel like you want to dig in even deeper with this concept, check out my strength training series for procrastination. It's built for turning chronic procrastination into massive creative progress. The link's below. I want to leave you with this. Visioning time, purposefully visioning wide open spaces of time for your craft is not only something that I wholeheartedly advocate and walk my clients through regularly, but I truly believe can lead to reality. The key in all this is stepping away from the fantasy that the time in and of itself is the fix. Rather, it's our job, it's our responsibility to practice how we use time, just like the experienced coal miner that used water purposefully and consciously to restore and strengthen. We want to learn to be smart, savvy, and good stewards with the time that we do have, so that when we get more of it, we use it well. Now, go and create. You were created to.
Now, here's the thing about procrastination. With the right tools, it can be our greatest helper. Without the right tools, it will take us down, shamelessly stealing days, months, years, and even decades from us. And it doesn't stop on its own. The procrastination system, 6 hours, 5 segments, 20 chapters, custom-built tools and concepts reinforced by up-to-date neuroscience. Turn your inaction into traction. The link's below. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. If this episode was useful, I would love for you to hit the like button and perhaps share it with someone. For more tool-based, actionable, creative content, please make sure to subscribe. Also, if you have a question about creativity or the artist role that you would like to have answered, please leave it in the comments below, and it may be featured in an upcoming episode.